Okay, what do we got? We got how the boys destroyed Marvel forever.
Predictable formulaic, all spectacle with no actual substance. This is the reality of the post-Endgame Marvel Cinematic Universe, and nothing makes this more clear
Yeah.
than watching The Boys, a morally complex drama with realistic characters and its biting satire are killing the MCU. When it was released,
Bro, I remember when I first watched The Boys, and I don't want to ruin it for anybody that didn't see it yet. Um, by the end of the first episode, I was hooked. I was like, it's a superhero or show, but this is cut from something different. It's built differently. Okay, the show is a superhero show, but it's like if Marvel would have the balls to do like a rated R thing. I mean, they kind of did with what do you call it, Deadpool, but Deadpool ends up being kind of silly. It because just that's just a character. I mean, and Deadpool's great. Was like a great addition to like the Marvel like MCU or whatever. But the boys, it just hits different. There's a lot of adult themes, but you know how like the Marvel formula is like serious, serious, and then joke, or like serious then joke. The boys is just serious, 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 and then maybe like a half a joke or something like that. It, and it's like it'll go into like it'll dip into the taboo sections of like adult entertainment. I mean, I don't know. It's just The Boys is awesome.
in 2019, Boys reinvented the superhero genre by asking one simple question. What would a world with superpowers really look like? Well, it's not a pretty picture. The heroes are steeped in corruption, threatening, abusing, or murdering whoever they want. Meanwhile, their crimes are covered up and hidden by the mega corporation Vault, which uses money and power to stay in control. The main characters are a group of outcasts, whose lives were torn apart by the system they're desperately trying to fight. The show makes it clear that it's a satire of modern superheroes across the board. The main villain Homelander is a clear example, a warped and twisted analogue of Superman, who takes glee in violence and cruelty. But just like everything in The Boys, he's not black and white. Homelander isn't just another evil Superman.
No, he's not just an evil Superman. I think Homelander is a more interesting character. To say whether or not he's a good guy or a bad guy is going to be like up to you, but he is way more interesting than Superman. You know, Superman is like the flagship Boy Scout of like not Marvel, DC, like the DC universe. But Homelander Homelander doesn't have a like an alter ego. Homelander is just Homelander. He's not trying to blend in with anybody. Superman blends in via Clark Kent, and he's trying to hide the fact that he's Superman. All right, Homelander is just out there. He's Homelander all the time. He don't wear no mask. He's not trying to hide anything. He's just, hey, I'm stronger. I'm faster. I'm smarter. I'm just better than you.
Like the character from Injustice, he's been traumatized, raised in a lab, and isolated from anything that even looks like a real family. He's desperate for love and attention, while seeing everyone as either beneath him or not worth anything at all. And he's not just violent to achieve his goals, he's violent because he's got a hair-trigger temper and the emotional maturity of a teenager. In short, he's a deep and intricate character, and just one of the many examples for why The Boys is destroying the MCU. The past few years haven't been kind to Disney's money-printing machine, with just a few exceptions like the Spider-Man sequels. The Marvel films released after Endgame have been commercial and creative disasters.
Yeah, it's been a tragic downfall. Like a lot of these movies, like there's like I think Doctor Strange is pretty good. Like Multiverse of Madness. These movies are good if you turn your brain off and just like again, like he said in the beginning, you just watch the spectacle and don't like keep a bulleted list of the plot points and plot holes and all the details of the movie. I mean, you can do that if you want, but it kind of just takes away from it upon like the first viewing, which is like I would say the one that matters the most whenever you see a lot of these movies, because a lot of the time the more you see the movies, the more the plot is cleared for you. It's like, oh, that was this was connected to that was connected to this and that, and so on and so forth. And the spectacles lose their spectacleness, their grandioseness. And since like upon like subsequent viewings, like since they lose all of that fantasticness, it's like what's left? The plot, the acting, the story. And so it's just yeah.
Poor writing has plagued them all, with focus group characters acting out formulaic plotlines which lack any real tension, and The Boys has shown audiences just how compelling.
And also in the case for Marvel, the jokes don't hit upon like second, third, fourth viewings. Like the jokes hit maybe on the first watch, but not so much the next couple.
The genre can be. Alongside other shows like Invincible, it pushed the genre forward, and most importantly, it matured with its audience. And for all the people who've been following Marvel films for over a decade, it's like a breath of fresh air. The Boys took the best parts of the MCU that people loved and made it even better. It took the parts that people don't like and made fun of them. The Boys excel at poking fun of the world we live in, though.
Another thing, I mean, I already mentioned it before, that sets The Boys apart from all of the other superhero movies. I don't think there's a lot of characters, if any, I'd have to go back and watch, that have masks on. I'd have to go back and watch it again to figure out if that's like true or not. But a lot of the time, people just know the characters or the superheroes of The Boys. They know them without the mask. There's no like alter ego trying to hide behind something like, oh, who's this guy? Who's that guy? None of this hiding stuff. It's just they're out there, full face.
Not just Marvel films, its commentary on them flows naturally as a result of what it says about society. The endgame scene was just pandering and laughably obvious. It's presented as if it's something revolutionary, like they're proving something about how strong women really are. The scene was made fun of around the world, and The Boys didn't pull any punches. But before we continue, I want to talk about a video sponsor. Have you ever Googled yourself and was shocked to see your personal information exposed on one of those public listing sites? Data brokers are making a fortune selling your information to robocallers, spammers, and others who want to learn more about you. Like
oh shit.
And that's why I'm excited to tell you about today's sponsor, Aura. Aura can identify data brokers exposing your info and submit opt-out requests on your behalf. Now, brokers are legally required to remove your info if you ask them to, but if they make it super hard to do, let Aura handle it for you. And you can try Aura for free for 2 weeks using my link.
I might actually get this.
Aura also does so much to protect you and your family from online threats you can't see. It's super easy to set up, and you don't have to download several different apps to get things like parental controls, antivirus, VPN, password management, identity theft insurance, and more. Instead, you get everything in one at an affordable price. So let Aura do the hard work of keeping you safe online so that you can focus on other tasks with peace of mind. You can either let people continue to exploit and profit off your private information, or you can go to aura.com/.
I'm so exploitable.
2-week free trial. Also linked down in the description below. They didn't even need to change the scene at all to parody it. It's ridiculous enough on its own. The best satire and parody though doesn't just work as a collection of jokes, you still need the substance. And The Boys did this and more, giving us an actually satisfying and hilarious girl power scene without a single ounce of cringe. Instead of the orchestral swell and the generic bad guys to crush, it's a real fight against a powerful villain with fitting music. It actually has meaning for the plot. It's pretty much better in every way. The difference is all in the meanings behind the scenes.
Yeah.
The game scenes fell flat because it was completely hollow. Corporations don't care about girl power at all. They're just using it to appeal to different groups of people. Disney put that scene in to do exactly that. It's the same reason they're ruining Snow White.
Oh,
the
Jesus.
Hypocrisy is what really defines it. And The Boys does a great...
Okay. So like the whole the like girl power scene or whatever, I think it was mostly fine. I didn't really think about it until he just mentioned it in the video. And I'm trying to think back when I first saw Infinity Wars, or like the final movie of it. And they had that scene. When I was in the theater watching it, the thought didn't cross my mind that, oh, it's just a bunch of girls right there. I was just watching the movie, and then it just so happened that those were the characters that were left standing to, you know, march forward and, you know, do their thing. But I can see where he's going with it. And I mean, I get it. It's just they're two separate IPs catering to different audiences, I would say. If I were to try to, I mean, granted, if you've seen a lot of the Marvel stuff or DC stuff, you've probably seen The Boys. The concentric circles are not so much like completely separate from each other. They're more or less like almost completely overlapping, I would say, at that point. But I mean, yeah.
Great job of showing this. Just like real companies, Vouch makes every effort to look as politically conscious and inclusive as possible. It's all for the image, of course, a cover for the awful abuses of power that go on behind the scenes. The show even goes into how a politically correct environment doesn't actually help anyone, and it can actively be used against people. Mevi, a bisexual superheroine on the show, has her identity used against her when Homelander forces her to come out on live TV.
Oh, dang.
We have a gay hero, Queen Maeve.
Oh my god, I forgot about this scene. This scene was so good.
Scoop for you, Maria.
Companies use their political preaching to get away with things all the time. It's a part of what The Boys is satirizing. Disney makes grand overtures about gay rights, all while censoring and selling their films to Russia and the Middle East, censoring any gay scenes possible. Nestle used the Rainforest Alliance to quietly sweep under the rug their breaking of all their connections with fair trade. The Boys' point here is that powerful people and organizations, which have no sympathy for the lives they ruin, will latch on to any hot issue to distract you from their own crimes.
We won't need a day to prove we're just as fast, or strong, or skilled.
This symbolism runs throughout the show. Homelander and the other superheroes are literally representations of the power that some people have. The deaths and suffering they cause is far greater than anything Homelander ever did on the show.
Yeah.
Just like the famous quote says, at some point you cross the line from personal tragedies into statistics. Butcher's speech to Huey towards the beginning of the show lays it all out. People don't cause a fuss because they don't want to listen. Abuses of power happen. People die for corporations as bottom lines all the time, but as Butcher says,
It's collateral damage.
it's part of the plan and the world moves on without noticing. The Boys systematically picks this essential lie apart. We see the violence and it affects us because it's direct. Homelander does it himself, rather than signing some document which eventually leads to people losing their lives. With just a few degrees of separation, it all gets easier to ignore. It's not the only way that the Boys...
Bro, the crazy part about that little scene when he's walking up against the dude with the gun is you see that, and I can't remember if it eventually showed him like falling, but it leaves you to your own imagination of where that dude went. All right, it is so cool that they can do things of like implied barbarism without actually showing what happened. And it was just like a simple little like grab, throw. Don't even change the camera. Just think about what happened to him, and that's what probably happened to him.
is far more connected to the world we live in. It actually creates a compelling and uncertain narrative, which is most visible in the overall story. You know who's going to come out on top in a Marvel film. The heroes always win. The movie begins, they play up one character flaw that often isn't really even a flaw, then the villain turns up, gets the conflict going, and the heroes overcome their trials and finally emerge victorious. It's a formula that they have used.
I mean, to be fair, they're just going off of the comics, and that probably happened in the comics. But, I mean, you could also argue against all that and say, oh, the movies are their own separate thing. They're just doing most of their stuff within the comics and then occasionally like derailing from it because certain things that work in a comic won't necessarily translate well into a movie. All right. Because a comic, you know, it's like released week by week or month by month or whatever. And then a movie, you only have so much attention span from an audience member. All right. 2.5 hours, maybe 3. And that's it. You got to get in with the story and get out with the story.
Over and over again, making it the junk food of cinema. But for many, this is satisfying enough. Infinity War was so successful because it reinvented this formula. They made Thanos the hero of his own story, and he actually won in the end. The amount of discussion online and the fever around the movie was insane, but it was a one-time thing.
Yeah, Thanos was like one of the best bad guys because the movie chose to develop Thanos as a character as opposed to just Thanos, the big bad guy, who is just chaotic evil and just does evil things. From Thanos' perspective, Thanos was the good guy, and all these guys are the bad guy.
Since then, Marvel's villains and their plotlines have retreated back into their predictable formula. Whereas The Boys is so effective because you have no idea what's actually going to happen in an episode.
Yeah.
The Boys don't always win. In fact, they normally lose. They don't have superpowers or billions of dollars like their adversaries. The odds are always firmly against them, but they fight anyway, which makes them far more heroic than any other overpowered Marvel hero. The plot doesn't play out to hit the specific notes of the superhero movie. The characters make their own decisions, motivated by their own desires, entirely grounded within the context of the world. These narrative decisions make the show chaotic and completely unpredictable, which is just one of the ways that The Boys is so much closer to reality, while still being
Oh my god, that fucking scene, dude. Bro, when I saw that, I was like, what the fuck is happening? He's getting a hand job from someone just lying in a hospital bed. What the fuck? Oh my god. And okay, so maybe there's like one character that doesn't show their face and like invisible person, but everybody else does not hide behind a mask. Everybody else does not have an alter ego. They're just that person all the time.
completely off of the wall. The sense of having no idea what's going to happen next is also the main reason why Homelander is such an effective and terrifying villain. When he's on screen, you've got every reason to be afraid. He can switch from smiling to the cameras to murderous rage in an instant. He treats violence like nothing, lacking any empathy for his victims. In one scene, he takes the hearing away from a blind superhero, dooming him to a life trapped in his own head. He does it just to prove a point, and because he finds it insulting that someone with a disability could be compared to him. Now, plenty of villains are violent at the drop of a hat, but with Homelander, there's absolutely no
Bro, I gotta watch The Boys again. God damn. Like, just watching this shit over again, I'm like, ugh, I wanna watch it again.
way to predict it. It helps that Anthony Starr's performance is one of the best we've seen in decades. When we see him performing for the cameras, Anthony nails Homelander's wide smile,
Oh yeah,
his completely dead eyes.
It's fucking perfect, dude. This is the perfect guy to play fucking Homelander, dude. So good. Because I'll tell you this, the wide smile and the dead eyes kind of for me, they kind of remind me of like some sort of like anime style where like some of the bad guys or like side character bad guys will be like just fucking chaotic evil. They'll be like a chaotic evil side, and they'll have that just like smile that's like just comically huge, kind of implying like, oh my god, this is so awesome, this is so pleasurable for me. Or the Joker. All right, Joker had that gigantic mouth, big smile, big jaw or chin or whatever. And sometimes certain characters, their eyes would just be like glazed over, or they'd have like really beady eyes, indicating that they're like super crazy. And yeah, he just nails it, man.
His mastery of his expressions as a whole is really what seals the deal. The scene where Homelander talks to his alter ego in a mirror is a
good scene.
Masterclass. He goes through the whole range, showcasing fear, anger, guilt, and hatred, all in the space of a single minute.
And then, my boy, you can finally be who you were always meant to be.
It's this iconic performance.
Bro, you know what that scene reminded me of? That scene reminded me of a scene in Lord of the Rings when Smeagol is talking to Gollum, and the character is like, the camera is just switching back and forth, and like one side will be Smeagol and then the other side will be Gollum, and he's just talking to himself. Oh my god, it was so good.
That's thrust Homelander into the public consciousness. You can't go 5 minutes online without seeing his face used in a meme or as a reaction. It serves to make Homelander that much more terrifying, as the lives of the people around him completely depend on the unstable emotions that Anthony Starr portrays so well. When he's violent, it's often without any warning or build-up. At the end of the day though, any villain that can make the word yummers intimidating is something special.
Yeah. Yummers.
What? I forgot that they even fucking said that, dude. Yummers.
Guess you wanted to cram in as much fat fuck as possible, huh?
At the beginning, the performances were what made the MCU into the juggernaut we know today. Without Chris Evans and Robert Downey Jr., the whole franchise would have had a hard time getting off of the ground.
Oh yeah.
They're what catapulted it towards success, but most of the big names now have left. Their stories have finished, and they probably won't be back. Remaining stars like Benedict Cumberbatch and Chris Hemsworth have found themselves shackled by poor scripts and loose motivations. The Boys has the advantage of multiple seasons and episodes to develop these characters, but this is even considering that the villains in the MCU never even came close to what they've achieved. Most of the time, they're everything Homelander isn't. Their motivations rarely make sense outside of moving the plot forward. Their plans are predictable and often stupid, nearly always devolving into a big fight scene. A lot of the time, they're simply just weaker than the hero in every way. And
I mean, that's not to say that like I don't enjoy just a random good ass fight scene. All right, you can't shit completely on Marvel because like Marvel does some stuff all right, but I completely get why Marvel is just like on the downtrend. All right, they still got the spectacle aspect, and it's like sometimes I want to like as an audience member, sometimes I want a good story, and other times I just want like some shiny keys dangled in front of my face. All right, that's literally it. But it sometimes, like when you dangle the keys in front of my face for too long for too many movies, I'm just like, okay, get those fucking keys out of my face.
means there's even less stakes, especially because we know they'll lose in the end. The unsubtle and one-dimensional writing in the MCU mirrors what political commentary they do stuff in. Disney's attempts just pile more ammunition into the culture war, little 10-second clips to show they're taking a side, a battle that can never be won because it's defined by its division. Issues then get absorbed by the war, turn into simplified yes or no questions, and then they get pitted against each other. And The Boys satirizes this through its treatment of the fans. They're clearly allegorical for modern political fanatics in today's societies. Homelander's fans are Trump supporters, Starlight's the Democrats, and like its satire, it pokes fun at both.
I didn't even put those two together. Oh my god. I didn't even think about that, dude. I was just so engulfed in the story, and I had so much just temporary suspension of disbelief going on right then. I didn't even think like, oh, there's the Trump supporters, oh, there's the Dems, there's the lefties, there are righties. I didn't even think about it like that.
Sides of the fence, but its greater point is that the whole thing is a farce to begin with. The Boys reduces the modern culture war down to what it really is: toxic fandoms. The people on either side aren't actually thinking about the issues, they're just rooting for their team. Both valid and powerful institutions in real life take advantage of this and promote it as much as they can. And if half the country is constantly at war with the other half, then it lets them keep everything exactly the same. It's another way they divert and redirect people's anger, which is why it makes so much sense for the superheroes to stand in for the politicians, as just like the politicians, they're ludicrously powerful, but they have to make hollow speeches and they get paraded around for their cameras.
Yeah.
The real power is in the money and the corporations without in the show. It's ironic that the show that's done the most to make this visible to people is completely owned and operated by Amazon, the picture child for monolithic mega corporations. The show never actually calls out or satirizes Amazon itself, although that doesn't mean it's just hypocrisy. Amazon probably didn't think it was going to be such a hit to begin with, and now that it's this popular, they can't interfere with it. There's unfortunately no other way the show can
The Boys slaps, dude.
be made without some big money flowing in. It would be
Wait. The Boys episodes cost more than 11 million each, allowing for bigger action sequences every season. Damn. 11 million an episode. Holy crap, dude. That's crazy.
nice to imagine that Eric Kripke, the showrunner, got one over on Amazon by getting them to fund something which indirectly criticizes them, but the reality is probably less satisfying. The Boys is blowing away Marvel's idea of humor as well.
Speaking of which, I haven't seen Translucent around anywhere. You wouldn't happen to know anything about that, would you?
Cunts invisible. It could be standing in that fucking corner, plugging one out right now for all we know.
Instead of witty quips which take you out of the moment, The Boys keeps it to a minimum, mostly playing it deadpan. It's the situations that are funny, the characters themselves create the laughs. It's the kind of humor that adds to the story rather than making it feel like the characters are just taking it all as a joke. But if there's one thing Marvel's always been able to rely on, it's their ability to make a spectacle. It doesn't really matter if the plot and the dialogue suck, as long as the CGI is on point. That's half the battle for Marvel films, which is why people like Martin Scorsese describe this as the junk food of cinema. Recently,
that is actually a good comment to call it the junk food of cinema. Or wait, Martin Scorsese warns of cinema being marginalized and devalued and shouldn't become comfort food. Dang. So what does he think good movies are? Like vegetables and shit? Like eat your vegetables. To some degree, he's probably right. I get it.
though, even the special effects have been slipping, like the floating head from Thor. The effects just don't have the same impact anymore. With absolutely everything being green screened in, it's really hard for any of it to seem like it's actually there. And of course, The Boys is Marvel beat here. The practical effects are what makes it. By combining the same high level of special effects that Marvel has, the actual prosthetics and props underneath makes it much more believable. If you want spectacle, The Boys has it in spades. Of course, it's not competing for the cinematic experience, but it doesn't really need to. The Boys has taken advantage of the shift in the audience. The MCU's been going on for 15 years. Lots of people who grew up with it are past adulthood. They're not looking for what the MCU has been doing for all that time.
I would make the argument they made Thor a dumbass. I just don't think it does the character
They did. They literally made Thor like a frat boy, you know, drinking beers all the time. And, you know, you got Fat Thor doing the battle ropes with his like his little, like, what was it? His plaid vest and his trucker hat and shit. And he's, oh, you know, it's like, of course, he's a frat boy.
Justice. It's a very see the joke, take the joke, regardless of what it does to the characters kind of mentality.
They're looking for something to fill the gap, and shows like The Boys and Invincible have just done that. They actually grew with their audience.
Yeah, Invincible also fucking goated.
The MCU has done the opposite. The most recent Thor film and the upcoming Avengers film shows they're doubling down on keeping the kids happy, and in the process, they're alienating the people who have kept the franchise.
Yeah, this was such a letdown for me, dude. Like, when did I see Love and Thunder? Was it in the theaters? I think it was in theaters. I think I was with my buddy, and throughout the most of the movie, like the first 2/3 of the movie was like okay, and then once we got to like the climax part of the movie, there was like a clear shift in tone, and it's like, oh, this is for kids. Okay. I really wanted to walk out at that point. And if you've seen it, you know what I mean.
Going for so long, whereas The Boys has already preempted this with their commentary on child stars, and we can assume Ryan will play a big part in the next season. Their new spin-off is already going in that direction. Marvel is going to keep giving them plenty of material, not that they were lacking, and if you take a look at Marvel's recent movies, it's clear they're losing their momentum. Other than Spider-Man, which has its own unique appeal, they haven't had any films hit the $1 billion mark since Endgame. Lots of them like Shang-Chi, Eternals, or the most recent Ant-Man haven't even got close to breaking even. Generic Marvel just doesn't do it anymore. The audience is tired of it. They've moved on, and The Boys was happy to pick up the slack, and by giving people better writing, actual tension, and pushing the genre forward, The Boys is now killing Marvel.
Good. What a good freaking video. I want to go see the fucking Boys again. It's just that good of a show. God dang. Dang. What a goat. This is a great ass video. Jeez. All right. That's pretty much it. The Boys and Invincible, actually goated. And if you haven't seen it yet, go check it out. And also go check out Moon. Good ass content creator, all right? So that's pretty much it, all right? I'll catch you guys later. Peace.